Hello and welcome to Tonalist Paintings by M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting we are talking about today is called Morning Trail. It's a 10 by 14 inch painting, and we did the study, I don't know if it was last week or maybe the week before. Yes, I know, I'm slowing down, folks, but don't worry. There's a lot of stuff there for you to look at. In fact, there's the whole 100 days of tonalism, which is me doing studies from the masters, and then we've got 33 of these of me doing my own stuff, half of those being the studies and half being the larger pieces. So there's a lot of material out there for you to explore, and if you have watched every single one and read every single blog post, there's my older blog, which you can find it on Blogspot. In fact, if you just put my name in, M. Francis McCarthy, I come up. There's another blog I did on tonalism too, and there's another even older blog out there, but and some of this stuff is archived also on my website, so there's tons of stuff. Anyway, that said, I'm trying to keep giving you guys new content and new things to look at, and a lot of times it's just a function of when I can record these things. So anyway, here we are today, and today is April 17th down here in New Zealand in the southern hemisphere, and on this big island way down here in the middle of the Pacific. Well, not the middle Pacific, it's in between the Pacific and what they call the Tasman Sea, and where the distinction is between those two is maybe questionable, because there's a lot of water there, folks, and we're down here. Anyway, it's fall and it's falling, we're having some rain and things like that, and but I've been fairly productive in the studio. I know you're wondering, how's it going in the studio, Mike? And I have been working my way through second pass of the latest series of 10. I'm really only concentrating on one of those each day I'm in the studio, because I've recently become pretty fixated on revising a bunch of older paintings, some of them even not that old, but every now and again I have these epiphanies. I can see things, and I can see the things that are wrong, and ways I can hopefully improve a painting. And in some cases, I'll be writing probably about this in the blog post. And in my old blog, which is getting to be maybe 3 years ago, I went through another one of these extensive revisiting phases. That was very much based on taking a vacation and seeing my wife's family in England and my family in California, and also included a stop at the Louvre in Paris. And I got a lot of insight and inspiration there, and I also had a pair of fresh eyes. So when I came back from that trip and I was in the studio, all of a sudden I could see all of these things wrong with this major pass of paintings I'd done. At that time I'd attempted to do, I think, a pass of 50 paintings, which is just way too large. And I was still, of course, I'm always progressing. I'm always getting better at doing landscape painting and at doing it my way. And so many times it's composition that's tripping me up. I have a pretty good sense of color now. Values, I'd say, or sound, although not always. Sometimes I could definitely improve there too. But so I've probably got about, my goodness, well, let's see, oh no, I don't have a folder here anymore. I'm guessing 20 to 25 paintings that I've actually, I'm a bit of a clever clog. I think I am, in that I've taken my photos of these paintings, and I've actually, in some cases, recomposited elements over those photos of the paintings in Photoshop, so that I would have some sort of reference to look at when I revise them. That's not something I always do. Sometimes I'll just jump in and repaint a tree here, repaint a tree there, and there's a lot to be said working from strictly from your imagination. But I like to have some sort of input, and I think the higher quality the input, the more it sparks your creativity and the more interesting the painting is going to be. And so one thing I've actually experimented with in a few of these is taking like some trees from a few old master paintings and sort of composing it over some areas of my painting that just had a problem. Maybe it's a weird tree, maybe it's just a compositional whatever, but it's a very interesting the results I'm getting in the studio, because a lot of people compare my work to traditional work, but if you really look at these older paintings, I mean, they would paint 200 individual clumps in a tree, of bunches of leaves, and let's face it, I'm doing that with a bit of an impressionist stroke, a daub here, a pass there, things like that. So while I may get that feeling, my painting is more informed by tonalism, which is a more expressive approach to landscape painting, a lot looser, more fracture in the brushwork, less of this detailed every leaf in a painting kind of style, and more organic. And so but there's something very interesting about the shapes of trees in some of these old master paintings. It's very distinctive, and it's actually very different from the sort of shapes you get using a photo reference. And it's interesting how even from painter to painter you'll see an approach to the shapes of the trees that's very, very interesting and very distinctive, almost regardless of what particular painter did it too. It's almost like it's based on an era or a way of seeing, a way of thinking. So anyway, I've done that with some, but with a lot I've maybe just stuck in a new tree or come up with a bit of a new sky, or in some cases maybe I'm just darkening a little bit here and there with some glazes so I can direct the eye better. Anyway, it's well, I've given myself another week to mess around with this stuff, so I've got a whole box still to go, so I'm gonna have to hunker down and hustle, because my main job right now is actually I'm supposed to start doing some much larger paintings for some upcoming shows I have, so I need to hunker down and start focusing on that. And I guess I'm actually thinking I may take some of these small paintings, it's maybe an 8 by 8 inch, and actually do that up larger, say 14 by 14 inches, or even whatever. I'm redoing a lot of square ones, seem to be in the mix, but a few of 8 by 10s from there was probably a year or two there that all I was painting was 8 by 8s and 8 by 10s, and then gradually I've started working in 10 by 14s, like the one you're looking at now. This is a 10 by 14, and I'm actually moving up very soon to some 1824s, which for me is quite large. I recently did like a 16 by 22 in the studio, and I think that worked out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. Well, I'm still working on it. I still have to do a second pass on it, but if that first pass isn't happening, it's pretty hard to save it with the second pass. You're really just, it's more incremental changes and gradations and things like that we get into. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end. Thank you for joining me today, and thanks for sticking with me. I'll keep trying to keep this stuff coming for you. Apologize if it's not every week, but we do what we can. And I hope you're all doing well, and with any luck, I will be back next week with yet another painting, probably a little study. So meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble.